Super Whovian is also available on Spotify. You are listening to a Whovian Comedy podcast. Coming up on this episode of Super Whovian. Ashley Tuchin is a Whovian that you may not know of, but one that you would definitely love to meet. A cosplayer and editor of the magazine for the Doctor Who Fan Club of Australia, Ashley joins me in this episode to discuss his love of classic Doctor Who, the brand new series, and the division of the Doctor Who community within the last few years. My name is Liam, and this is Super Whovian. Welcome to Super Whovian. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me here, Liam. It's great to be here. I'm honoured that you invited me.
Oh, I had to invite you. After working with you on the Fans of Who documentary last year, I had to have you on the show, on the podcast for sure. Definitely.
Oh, thank you. I feel very humble because you're such a great Doctor Who content creator. So it makes
thank you.
I'm touched to think you thought of me for this podcast series. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. So why don't we kick off the conversation and jump into a little bit about you and how you got into the show.
Well, I've been a fan since 2005, as like a lot of people have been. My mum's partner, who was living with us at the time, he was a Doctor Who fan from way back when he moved in with us in 2004, and he brought with him a copy of Carnival of Monsters, the third Doctor story, Carnival of Monsters on DVD. He attempted to get my brother and I into Doctor Who by showing us that. I was only 2004. I was only 12 at the time, so I was very like, oh, the bad special effects, and so we didn't, that didn't succeed. Then 2005, when the new series started, he asked me to record it for him because we're going to be out, and I was in charge of recording things on the VCR. So I missed the first several episodes, but eventually we got Dalek, and we watched Dalek together, gave it a chance, and my mind was blown. I was like, oh my god, this is cool. I thought, isn't he meant to be an old guy with wonky sets? And it was like, so my mind, I did a complete 180. I continued watching the Chris Eccleston series from there. I also went back and watched Carnival of Monsters properly, gave it a decent chance, and that was the beginning of the end for me. I'm a bit of a completionist, so when I start something, I want to know as much as I can about that thing. So I dove onto Wikipedia. I was looking up as much as I could about Doctor Who. I started buying all the DVDs I could. When the new series was coming on DVD, I started buying it. Started buying classic stories. Within the next few years, I'd pretty much sampled every Doctor that was available. And yeah, it's just down the rabbit hole of buying DVDs, reading things on Wikipedia, just trying to immerse myself as much as possible throughout the rest of my high school years. Even in 2010, I went to my first Doctor Who event, Whovention, run by the Doctor Who Club of Australia, where I met Sylvester McCoy, the Seventh Doctor.
So jealous. I'm so jealous.
That was also my first time cosplaying. I cosplayed as the 11th Doctor. That was around the time when I was really kicking into gear further. I was I went up to the next level of fandom. Started getting involved, going to fan events, started cosplaying. And yeah, it was an explosion from there, just bigger and bigger. Started listening to Big Finish audios, started to, buy Doctor Who magazine, just started exploring all the different little nooks and crannies of a Whoniverse. It wasn't enough just to watch the show on TV and to buy the DVDs. I had to just know everything. The Eighth Doctor for a long time was such a fascinating prospect to me because I couldn't experience him. I couldn't get the movie on DVD. I had the novelization of the movie, and that was like all I had, and I devoured it. I'm actually wearing him on my shirt today. If you can see him.
Amazing.
But little Paul McGann. But yeah, so but over time I just, I eventually bought all the DVDs. I eventually, I got a big collection of Target novelizations and whatnot, and And yeah, was buying merchandise, was getting more involved in fandom. Yeah, just started writing fan fiction. It was just yeah, so from humble beginnings, scoffing at it's all of the bad special effects to instantly doing a 180 and just doing a big old deep dive in and never looking back.
Oh, I was very much the same. Like I can remember watching. It was 2000 Boxing Day 2007 when we used to get the Christmas. We still do. We get them Boxing Day anyway. But I remember seeing Voyage of the Damned on TV, and it was the scene where they were on like the junk bridge, like smashing away the halos of angels. And I remember Dad changed the channel and I was like, "What? This looks stupid." I was like, "No, I'm not interested." And then I saw Midnight the following year, and I was like, "This isn't like I love it. What is this?" So I was very much the same. Like I was very turned off by the show, and like look at me now, like nah,
It's
I'm
weird.
obsessed.
I think so many of us had we had these preconceived notions of like,
Yeah,
oh, Doctor Who, that's an old show. Like my mum used to like, I think the first time I ever heard of Doctor Who, I asked my mum what it was, and she's like, oh, it's an old show of bad special effects. And like that's all like for years I was vaguely aware that's what it was. And so when you actually give it a chance though, you realize there's a lot
yeah,
more to it than
exactly.
that.
So I know that you mentioned earlier the Doctor Who Fan Club of Australia, and you work very closely with them.
Yes,
And
I
so
do.
you do the magazine, which you've gotten me to write for a couple of times. Um, and how did you get involved working with them so closely?
Oh, well, like I said, I went to one of their events they used to run these conventions called Whoventions. First of all, the club's been around since 1976. They're it's sad that more people don't know about them, but they're Australia's oldest Doctor Who fan club. They're quite a big deal. I went to one of their events in 2010, like I said, met Sylvester McCoy. And then a few years later, I started going to some more of their events here and there. Then a few years later, I think it might have been about 2016, the editor of they have a monthly magazine called Data Extract, and the editor of a magazine put out a call on their Facebook page, just looking for fan fiction stories. Like you could submit fan fiction stories for the magazine, and I pitched a story to him, sent him an email. It was a 12th Doctor fan fiction story called Null and Void. And that was my first time sort of contributing to the magazine, and I
Yeah,
established a bit of a relationship with the editor, Craig Land. And yeah, he sort of like tapped me to be like one of our. I sort of got involved in a few different projects of the magazine. They did a big sort of ongoing fan fiction series that involved the 11th Doctor and an original companion, which sort of set up this whole sort of ongoing sort of mythology, which has now spun off into these novels which we're publishing. It's sort of like a whole
oh,
thing,
wicked.
but
Okay.
I was asked to be part of that when it first started and wrote a few stories for that sort of series. And
Yeah.
yeah, so then a few years, I think it's about 2018, that editor, Craig, moved on, and the assistant editor, Darren Jordan, moved up to become editor, and he asked me would I like to fill the assistant editor position. And I was a little uncertain because I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to commit to something like this, but
Yeah.
I agreed to give it a go, and so I've been doing that now since 2018, assistant editor for Data Extract, which the role I've taken on a bit more responsibility as time has gone on, and and then last year I was asked if I would like to join the club's committee and start running their social media. So I started doing that last year. So I'm now, in addition to working on the magazine, I now run the club's Facebook and Instagram account, and so that's been pretty fun. Yeah, so it's a great group, and we do a lot of fun stuff. So I encourage anyone who any Australian or even non-Australian fans to check them out. And yeah, it's been great fun.
Yeah, definitely. From what I've seen on the social media, as you said, you run the social media. It looks great. And sadly for me, I live over in Perth in
Mm.
Western Australia. So like it's like there is the fan club here in Perth, but it's very small and very like you said, the Doctor Who fan club of Australia is very unknown. This one over here is quite unknown. So like you guys get all the big events. Like I think I saw Fraser Hines and Katie Manning's coming over that way, and I was like, oh, they don't come over here. But yeah, I'd like it would be awesome to join in for sure from
It
Western Australia.
it is sad because Australia has a good strong history and a good strong presence of Doctor Who fandom, and we
Yeah,
do have these different groups, and it's just to say that a lot of people are unaware of them, or like because a lot of them are small, but there are a lot of them around the country. Like you said, there is a West Australian one, and yeah, I try to through using the club's social media, I try to sort of promote different things going on around the country and try to raise awareness of these
yeah,
different groups because we have got a strong fan presence, so
yeah, definitely.
just a matter of making people aware of it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned that you have been a fan of the show for a very long time. So, do you have a favorite doctor, companion, monster, favorite episode, anything like that?
Oh, we Doctor Who fans are not very opinionated. We don't tend to do favorites or anything
Oh,
like that.
definitely not.
No, yeah, of course. We all have our favorites. It's like children, isn't it? We say we don't have a favorite, but of course we do.
We definitely do.
I typically say that my favorite Doctor is the Fourth Doctor, with the eighth and 11th being my second and third. But honestly, there are some days where the eighth is my favorite. Like, it's a weird thing where like they kind of like I feel obligated to put four as my favorite because it's Tom Baker, and I do love him dearly. But there are days where Paul McGann sort of edges him out, so it's sort of like a close tie, and then Matt Smith is sort of a close third. They're my holy trinity, my top three. In terms of companions, I tend Romana too. The second incarnation
Mm,
of Romana is my favorite companion. Absolutely love her. But then also got Ace, got Donna, got Amy Pond. They all rank highly for me too. Got a few big Finnish companions that I rank up high, which most people probably won't know. But in terms of TV companions, yeah, Romana too, Ace, Donna, they're sort of the biggies. In terms of monsters, Cybermen and Weeping Angels tend to be my favorites. But then Autons are up there too. It's weird. I tend not to go for the popular ones like Daleks. I like and respect, but I don't tend to rank them very highly. Same as how like popular companions like Sarah Jane or popular doctors like the 10th Doctor, I like them, but I just don't usually rank them highly in my
yeah,
personal favorites list. But yeah, and that's the beauty of Doctor Who. You got a lot of options. There's a lot of
yeah,
like,
exactly.
they cater to every taste.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so being a fan for such a long time, it's seen the show go through some different eras, some good and some not so good. Has it been difficult for you sticking with the show through, dare I say it, one of the most controversial eras of Doctor Who's history, which is the 13th Doctor's era? Has it been
What?
difficult sticking through the show in through those times?
How honest do you want me to be?
Go for it. Be as
Um,
honest as you like.
okay. I don't want at the risk of getting an angry mob chasing me down. Yeah, it has been difficult at times.
Yeah,
Like, to be honest, this is like this right now with this current series 14 or series 1, whatever you want to call it, is the first time in probably over a decade that I've actually really been enjoying Doctor Who. New
yeah,
I in my mind, I always think of it as looking back. I think I started to trail off after the 50th anniversary. I feel like the 50th anniversary was such a high point for me. I was so like just in terms of a show, in terms of like fandom and what was going on, and I just
yeah,
felt look back and like this is probably nostalgia goggles, but I always think about it as being a high point, and then after that, things start slowly,
yeah, yeah.
falling
Definitely
off
agree.
again. I was excited for Capaldi's first season. I was so excited, but by the end of that season, I just felt like it wasn't quite what I'd hoped for. It had its good, I didn't hate it, but like it was just I could feel that excitement was dying off. And then throughout the rest of his run, I was slowly getting a little less enthusiastic. By the time of the 13th Doctor Chris Chibnall era, not pinning blame on anyone in particular, but it just like I was by that point I was not particularly invested or excited. I was still watching the show out of habit and I guess duty, like, oh, I've
Yeah,
got to keep watching. I've got to, it'll get better, but it did by midway through Flux, I realized I was actually dreading watching each episode, and I just had this epiphany where like this is a TV show. I don't have to watch it. Why am I forcing myself to watch it when I'm not enjoying it? And it sounds a bit trivial, but for me, it was kind of a big deal. Like, Doctor Who was my life. I was like, I identified as a Doctor Who fan more than anything else, and it was like, it just felt like the relationship had gone bad. Not to sound too melodramatic, but it was like I had to accept, no, this isn't for me anymore. This isn't, it's not making me happy watching it. I'm just forcing myself to watch it. So yeah, midway through Flux, I sort of tapped out. I said, okay, yeah, I'm done. I'm not gonna watch the rest.
Yeah.
I didn't. But then when Power of a Doctor was announced and they revealed that Janet Fielding and Sophie Aldred were coming back. Like I said, Ace is one of my favorite companions, so I was like,
Yeah.
Chibnall, you bugger.
Yeah.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. So I thought, okay, I'll watch it. It's Jodie's last story. I'll see I'll see her regeneration. I'll see Ace and Tegan return. And I quite enjoyed Power of a Doctor. I think it was pretty good. So that was my return, and then obviously then that's when everything changed. We had RTD come back. We had the shocking 14th Doctor twist. Yeah, so obviously I stuck around for that, and the 60th specials weren't quite what I had sort of hoped for, but I
Yeah.
still enjoyed them. They, on one level, I sort of feel a little disappointed, but they were still good. I enjoyed them, and so yeah, so I did dip out for a bit, and there was a long process of feeling my love waning, but it's
Mm.
starting to come back now, and I'm hoping I can maintain that upward momentum, and just fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I think you summed that up perfectly because I was very much the same, especially throughout Jodie's era, where I was so excited. I like the announcement of the 13th Doctor, the first female Doctor. I was very much like, as a lifelong fan, I don't like that they've changed that. So I was very against female Doctor for a very long time. I loved Jodie, like I loved her as an actress. I'd seen her in so much, so I loved her as an actress, and I was very excited to see her take on it. But I wasn't happy. But I was so excited for Series 11 the more it sort of started coming up to it. And each episode, the first episode was good, and then as it kind of started, as you said, it started going downhill a lot. I was, like you said, I was dreading kind of watching each episode, but out of like how much I'd grown up with the show and how much I'd loved it, I was like, I can't just give up on it now. Like it was very much like forcing myself to watch it. Yeah, it was difficult, but yeah,
Exactly the same. Exactly. Like I'm the same. Like you gotta be like I always try not to. You gotta be careful who you say it to. But like I wasn't happy about it being a female doctor. Like
yeah,
I was worried. But again I thought oh Jodie. I've never seen her or anything, but I thought I'm sure she'll be great. I'm just not sure about this. And like I keep my opinion to myself so I don't get chased off by an angry mob. But I still watched it. I thought I'm sure she'll be great. It's just not necessarily. I don't know if it's what I wanted. But then. I kept waiting for like, okay, yeah, give it a few episodes. And like, no, I kept waiting, but this isn't doing
yeah,
anything for me. And it was
yeah,
like, not necessarily, not criticizing Jodie, but it's just like the episodes were not like I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it.
yeah.
And like you said, just go. And by the time we got to like the Timeless Children, I was like, oh hell no.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I got like Series 11, I was heavily disappointed with Series 11. And for some reason, I was still, the trailers for Series 12 would come out and I'd still get so excited and then I'd be disappointed. And then Flux, it, it was better, but it was still not great. But like I said, I was disappointed with the idea of a female doctor. But part of me was trying to justify it, thinking, but I'm like this with everyone who's announced as a doctor. I'm very much like against it until I see them. But it was just something, yeah, I don't know. And then it was around that time as well that if you couldn't, not that you couldn't voice your opinion on it, but you were very much, like you said, chased down by a mob of people accusing you of what being sexist or something like that. It was difficult.
It is hard. But fans tend to be very passionate, and they also tend to be
Yeah.
very what's the word, like dichotomous. Like you're one thing or the other. Like that's just online discourse in general. Like they don't leave much room for nuance. You can't say like, well, I don't think the Doctor should be a woman, but he's please let me finish my sentence before
Yeah.
yeah. It's like things like that. Like I'd always been very big on the idea of like, well, the Doctor is a great role model for boys because he's one of the
Mm,
few male heroes who, doesn't use violence, etc., etc. So that's why I was always worried about like, and the idea of like, is this just a sort of publicity move, that sort of thing.
yeah,
Those are my ideas. Like I said, Romana too is my favorite companion, and she's a strong time
mm,
lady. She became president of Gallifrey. She's super cool, smarter than the Doctor most of the time. I'm
yeah,
fine with those sorts of characters. It was just the idea of the Doctor being a woman was something I wasn't sure about, and I didn't think
yeah,
I thought.
definitely.
And but like you said, it's hard to discuss that with people without them just chasing you down the streets with their
Yeah,
pitchforks. So
very much so.
it's something that over time, like, I think I got used to more, like, yeah, okay, it's not, I got no, it's not no, it's not that big a deal. Not as big a deal as I initially sort of thought,
Yeah,
and, get used to it, but just I was prepared to eat my words. I thought, I'm gonna end up probably loving Jodie. I'm gonna end up
yeah,
thinking, "Okay, but then it never happened." Like I said, don't blame her, but it's just like, I never got to that point where I thought, "Oh, she's great." It was just like, "Oh, she's fine," but, like,
yeah,
these stories just aren't really doing it for me.
yeah,
I'm
definitely.
not ready to rank her as, like, a one of my top 10 doctors or anything, so which,
Yeah,
like, that's not her fault, but,
yeah, yeah,
you can't force yourself to like something that doesn't speak to you,
yeah,
so.
exactly. So then stepping back a little bit through Jodie's era, was it hard for you seeing the rift that was caused between Doctor Who fans? Like there was so much negativity and so much hatred between two different sides of Doctor Who fans. You were either with the 13th Doctor and with that era, and you either liked it or you weren't a fan, basically.
It was. I remember being like, that was a time, like, I'm an anxious person in general. I have a lot of social anxiety. And so that was like Doctor Who had always been, like I said, it had always been since I was 13 years old, it had been my thing. It'd been like, such a strong part of me. Like at university, when we'd have a little, like, little class exercise, we'd introduce ourselves to each other. I'd always say, I'm a Doctor Who fan. That was like my main sort of defining characteristic. So to see like something I love become so tainted and toxic, like, just seeing people like becoming so horrible to each other, that's what it hurt, and it made me like
Mm.
I felt very drained a lot of the time. I didn't want to go on Facebook. I didn't want to like once upon a time these Facebook pages where I'd gotten a lot of joy from looking at Doctor Who stuff. Now I was like, I don't want to look at this stuff because it's just going to be people being
Yeah,
horrible to each other. And, there's too much negativity in the world. We don't need more, especially over like something as trivial as a TV show. Let's be honest,
yeah,
it's a TV show. We don't need to be, abusing people online over it. And so, and I had those moments where I would try to politely express my opinion, and then I learned very quickly not to do that because no matter how how eloquently you try to explain your position, people are always going to boil it down to oh, you're sexist. And
yeah,
I saw, well, if I was interested, I saw a lot of women saying that they weren't sure, they either didn't want it or they weren't sure, and then men accusing women of being sexist. And I thought, I feel like there's something weird going on here,
yeah,
but so it's just, yeah, it wasn't a fun time to be part of a fandom. I think fandom should bring people together over it, and if you have different opinions, that should be fine.
yeah,
As long as you're not being horrible, as long as you're not being deliberately horrible to people, then your opinion should be treated with respect. As like I said, within reason. Some people unfortunately have opinions that they're deliberately trying to be hostile. But generally speaking, things like, oh, I don't agree with this decision, or I don't agree with that direction. People shouldn't be ostracized for that.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, not a fun time. Not a fun time.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, going like people on Facebook hating on the show so much. That was also hard because I used to, the trailers would come up on Facebook, and I'd be like, oh, I'd love to go and search the comments and have discussions with Doctor Who fans in the comments of say YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or something. And it was always just so much negativity that I was like, oh, I don't really want to engage with this. Like it wasn't great.
It's sad, like some like I said, I've only recently started to really enjoy the show again. So like and so that's why it makes me sad when I see people who would, no matter what episode it is, no matter what, they'll always just say like, "Oh, the show's trash," blah blah blah. They always find an excuse to be angry, and I'm like, dude, I've had times where I haven't enjoyed the show, but like you don't need to resort to being like that. I mean,
Yeah,
you may not enjoy it, but other people are enjoying it. Don't feel that you can say that you don't enjoy it, but be nice about it. You don't have to say, "Oh, well, it's not my cup of tea. Personally, I think this, and this." But don't act like, it's the worst thing in the world. Don't act like it's all garbage because it's on Disney now, or it's all garbage
Yeah.
because of this. Like, yeah, you can be unhappy about it, but don't be toxic, I guess.
Yeah.
We can
So
all be civil.
yeah, exactly. So you mentioned that you're starting to slowly get back into it now. So so we are recording this episode the day that Rogue's come out. Yeah. That episode five, six, six, six.
6, yeah, 6. We
Rogue
got 2
Rogue
to
has
go.
come out.
Yeah.
So 6 episodes in now, but you haven't seen Rogue yet. So 5 episodes in. How are you enjoying the new era so far?
I'm enjoying it pretty well. Like
Yeah.
Boom was my big turning point. Boom, Space Babies. Watching Space Baby. Oh, but Church and Ruby Road, I quite enjoyed. But I was like, so nothing, no strong opinions. But that was pretty cool. But Space Babies was like nearly enough to make me backpedal again because I was like, I was on the fence. Like, I I had opinions, but I was like, but at the same time, it's a Russell T Davies story called Space Baby, so this is exactly what I was expecting.
Yep.
I thought I can't really complain. It was sort of, I didn't try to hide what it was, but then by the time I got to Boom, that was the first time in years I was engrossed in like a Doctor Who. Like I was watching it with my girlfriend, and like not even exaggerating, we were on the edge of our seats. Like I was slack jawed at moments because I was like, oh my god, this is the first time in a long time I want to just rewatch this episode again. Like um I was suckered in 73 yards again, like not to the same level, but I thought that was a very like I know people have had different opinions, but I thought it was a very very interesting, very engaging, very clever sort of story. Like yeah, they all have their flaws. Like nothing's perfect. They're all gonna have their flaws, but in general it had me hooked. I was suckered in. So that's when I started to think, okay, the show seems to be on an upward momentum again. So he's hoping they keep that up. And yeah, so far in general, I've been really enjoying the season. It's the first time in a long time I've actually been looking forward to each new episode. So I'm hoping that it ends on a strong note, and that the next season will continue that trend and hope like Shooty or and I've heard that it is actually pronounced Enshooty, so I will try
I
to
did
pronounce.
see that.
I
Yeah.
saw that video where he had been mispronouncing it, so apparently I'll try to say Enshooty. He's it was around Boom that I realized, yes, I love this guy. He is a great doctor. Um, him and Millie Gibson are both really great. It's a shame we've had so many Doctor and Companion Light episodes because they are really great. But I look for and having an 8 episode season is also like diminished screen time. It's a
Yeah.
little sad, but I guess that's modern times. But I look forward to having many more adventures with them. I'm hoping that they can keep up this sort of quality and yeah, just have now that I've been sort of brought back in, just crossing my fingers that Russell doesn't let me down. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
you were saying you loved Boom. So either in that episode or a previous episode or any episode that you've seen so far, was there a moment where for Shooty where you were kind of like, oh yeah, he's the doctor? Like, was there a click in your head moment where you were like, yeah, that's him?
I remember the first time I felt that. What was it? There was a moment in the Devil's Cord where I thought this is the first time I can feel, yeah, he's the Doctor. But now I can't remember what that moment was. But pretty much all of Boom I was really solid. His whole performance in Boom. By the end of that, I was like, yeah, okay, he's the Doctor. Like he's he's got me. I didn't have a problem with his performance before that, but it's just that was the moment where people talk about them having their first big Doctor moment. I feel like for me that was like, yeah, I believe that this is the Doctor. This is this is resonating with me. Like I'm excited to see what he does next. So yeah, it's I know like a lot of people have like sort of praised Boom. So inevitably people will probably start turning against it and say and point out why it actually sucks. But for the time being, at least, like I think most people agree it's a pretty good episode. And for me personally, I thought it was that was such a great episode for him. Um, it was a great story. Yeah, by the end of that episode, I thought, yeah, he's like, I don't want to say my doctor, but like he's one of my doctors. He's
Yeah.
I'm ready to follow him into adventures unknown across time and space.
Yeah, yeah, I was very much the same with Boom. Like I loved that story, and then his performance, and I mean, yeah, he was great. He's been great so far in every story, but it was that story that for me personally, I thought he showed the raw anger of the Doctor, the emotion, the humor, and then just the attitude of the Doctor so well that for me in Boom it clicked, and I was like, yeah, he this is it. Like he's got it. Like
Because I'm a grumpy old man of 32 years old, like because like they I was worried about he's gonna be too young, and like you got him dancing in nightclubs, and I was like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
whatever,
I
that's what we're
also thought
going
that.
for. Like I'm the old guard, like I'm the guy who loves his classic Who and his Big Finish, and like I'm gonna be grumpy while the Doctor's wearing a singlet dancing in a nightclub. Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna accept that that's. But then, like, I think that's why, like, I was happy to, like, after a few episodes, like, no, I can feel it. I can feel this is still that, that's millennia old Time Lord. Like, he's still in there. Like, I shouldn't be so quick to judge. Like, he is still the Doctor that I've always known and loved, and Boom was a point where I thought, yeah, no, this is him. I can feel the weight in that performance.
Yeah. So your love of classic Doctor Who, is you've spoken a bit about that already in this episode, and you spoke about it a lot in the documentary that you appeared in as well. So I'm also I love classic Doctor as much as I love New Who. My heart's just stuck with classic Who. It's
Same here.
just so good. So for someone listening who either hasn't gotten into classic Doctor Who yet or is struggling to, what stories would you recommend for them? Like let's go top three or top five stories that you would
Ooh.
go start with these.
Okay, well, my go-to that I usually suggest for getting the classic is my favorite Doctor Who story of all time, City of Death, which is a
Oh
Fourth
yeah,
Doctor
good story.
story, with the Fourth Doctor and Romana too, played by Tom Baker and Lalla Ward, written by my favorite author of all time, Douglas Adams.
Mm,
It's I think it's one of those episodes that I think no one would. I've never seen anyone hate or disparage. I think everyone,
yeah,
if they've seen it, they at least like it. I think it's sort of agreed that it's like a top tier story. I think for newcomers, it's good because it's got a very it's got a great, interesting story. Despite if you're not used to the multi-episode format of Classic Who, I think it's got a great story of great pacing, which it's pretty easy to keep up with. I don't think it really lags in any way where people are going to get bored.
yeah,
It's got classic Douglas Adams humor and wit, so I think it's pretty light, pretty funny, got a lot of humor to it. So I think it's got some of that modern Who sensibilities in that way. Um, so that'd be my first one, City of Death. The Five Doctors is another one I think works
mm,
pretty well.
good
Like that
story.
was one of it. I think after Carnival of Monsters, it was the first classic Who story I saw. I bought it on DVD. I thought it was just good value for money. But I was getting five Doctors for the price of one. If I was going to buy one Doctor Who DVD, that seemed like good value. So I think it's an anniversary special. It's obviously it's a multi-doctor story. You got a lot of companions, got a lot of monsters. It's a self-contained story. I think that's another. It's a special. I think that's another one that's sort of a good entry point just for like a little bit of taste of like it's not a typical classic Who story, but I think it's got enough elements there to give you ideas of at least if nothing else, you're getting exposed to several doctors at once, and it can give you an idea of who you might be interested in checking out. So that's well, now I've got to. What's another one I would? I think actually this might be a bit of a random one, but the Seventh Doctor story Battlefield I always think is a very
That's a very good
it's
story.
it's up there with my favorites, and I think there's some quality about it that I always just feel like I've shown it to a friend. I have a friend who I was introducing to some classic Doctor Who, and it was one of the first ones I showed her, and I just feel like again it's got a very good story. Just it's decently paced. I think it's just another one that's just like a fun, interesting story
Yeah,
that gives you a taste of sort of that, but it's close enough to the end of Classic Who where it's not 10 episodes long, black and white, so it's an easier pill to swallow. Um, so yeah, I think that'd probably be three that I would probably recommend. Wait, how many did you ask for? Three or
three,
five?
five, as many as you
Oh,
like.
five. Oh, trying to think. See if I can get two more because I'm so biased because I love Classic Who in general. It's hard to take a step back and think what's good for a
Yeah,
newcomer.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I actually think An Unearthly Child is a pretty like the first episode of An Unearthly Child is such a great episode. I think you could check it out. Like even if you just watch the first episode and ignore the caveman stuff, I think it is like I just rewatched it last year leading up to the 60th, and like honestly, I think it holds up as being a great introductory episode. So I'd throw that on the list. And if I was gonna go for a number five, I think possibly actually now I'm torn because I could think either Spearhead from Space, the first Third Doctor story,
Yeah.
just because it was a brand new, like first time in color, brand new era, like pretty much a whole new production team, new Doctor. Like, it was like a complete reset. So I think it's a pretty good jumping on point. But then also similarly Robot, just because like it's Tom Baker's first story, and like most people know the Fourth Doctor, so I think that if you wanted to sort of dip your toes into classic Who, like well, you could check out his first story, and
Yeah.
it's a pretty cool story. It's pretty easy going. Like you don't, it has it helps if you know a bit of continuity from the time, just to know who
Yeah.
characters are. But it's got the Fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane, so people tend to know who they are. Um, so yeah, I technically gave you six there, so but
That's all right. I'll take
future
it.
options.
Yeah, I think mine would definitely be. I think the first ever classic Who story I saw was Terror of. It was either Terror of the Zygons or the Seeds of Doom. I think one of those two from that season. So I think like I love that season in general. You've got the Seeds of Doom, Terror of the Zygons, Pyramids of Mars, Brain of Morbius, which
So many
can
classics.
can be a lot for a first time viewer, to be honest, with Brains of Morbius, but that's okay. But I think like that season as a whole, I would recommend like to so it's just so
It is
enjoyable.
a
It's the
great
Doctor and
season.
Sarah Jane, like it's so good.
That is a top tier season. Seeds of Doom terrified me the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, the
Oh yeah,
body horror aspect of it gave me chills.
yeah. I just love the concept of the crinoid, like and the plants and everything. Like I that's if anyone ever asked me what monster would you like to see return, the crinoid. I think that would be so cool. Like they could do so much with that. Like that would be awesome seeing
I'm
the
so
crinoid in
surprised they
here.
haven't come back yet. I would have thought they would have come back by now. So here's
Yeah.
hoping eventually.
Yeah, like in the series eight's in the Forest of the Night, which is probably one of the most hated stories ever. But they very much, I say they very much could have brought the crinoid back for that, but that story is not great. So I feel like it would have been a waste of the crinoid.
That
But
would have
that's
given
like
him
a
would have been
monster that I
something
love.
interesting about it. It would have given you something
Oh
to
yeah,
like about it.
yeah, it would have given. Yeah, exactly. That would have been the aspect, probably the only aspect I would have enjoyed from that story. But like that whole season, as I said, like you got the Zygons,
Mm.
Crinoids, you got the Pyramids of Mars, which is also like you got Sutek, which is such a good villain, which everyone is now theorizing is
I
coming
was
back.
gonna,
But
I was gonna say it's funny, relevant because I've heard people say. My first thought was about the one who waits and all that. I thought that my first thought was the Guardians of Time, the Black and White Guardians, until the toy
yeah,
maker said that he turned him into tops or whatever. Then I thought
yeah,
Fenric. Fenric is what I've been going
yeah,
for, but then I've heard people saying Sutek, and I thought I'd be happy with that too. Yeah.
yeah. There's so many theories that I've read that I've like so like I've mentioned to other guests in the episode before this, that like I just there's so many different questions and story arcs that we have running at the moment, like who Susan Twist
Mm.
is, who's Ruby, who's her mother, like what's going on with why is it snowing and like spots. So like I haven't even come up with any theories of who I think Susan Twist is, and then there's this whole thing now of like Sutek coming in, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know how they got that, but I'll take it. I love Sutek. I love Pyramids of Mars. I'll have it.
And then you still got Mrs. Flood in the background.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I even
And
forgot about Mrs. Flood.
But I was thinking about the other day, actually. I was starting to think about theories for the finale, and I thought we
Mm.
have got actually a lot of plot threads. It's not just like, oh, the one who waits. You've got, like you just mentioned, you've
Yeah.
got a lot of different threads. So it'd be interesting to see if they all get addressed in this season, or are they going to carry over?
I did read a couple of weeks ago from Russell T Davies saying that not all the questions are going to be answered in this series, in the series finale. So from that, I'm guessing we'll get maybe who Susan Twist is,
Hmm.
maybe Ruby's mother. That wouldn't surprise me if that carries on. I don't, as much as I'd love to know who Mrs. Flood is, I don't think that's a question we're going to get answered anytime soon.
Yeah, well, she was in Ruby Road, and she's had like one appearance since then.
Yeah, I
So
think she's only two or three times. I think she's only appeared.
yeah.
So I don't.
Susan Twist, they're increasingly drawing attention to it. So I think that's definitely going to be
Yeah.
answered. Yeah.
Um. And I think I saw Mrs. Flood's name on the cast list for the next episode, which would have aired before this comes out anyway. But
Um,
I'm pretty sure her name was on the cast list for the
okay.
Legend of Ruby Sunday.
Legend of Ruby Sunday, yeah, okay. But, well, with a title like that, I wouldn't be surprised. So,
Yeah,
being, I had an idea. I thought, because you know how I had the song they had in the end of Devil's Chord, like there's always a twist at the end. I thought, is that gonna somehow be connected to Susan
that's what I'm
Twist?
thinking.
And her name's Susan, and they mentioned Susan in the Devil's Chord, like the Doctor's
Yeah,
granddaughter Susan. I thought, am I looking into that too much, or is there gonna be some weird like would Russell actually do something like I feel like surely not, because that'd be kind of
yeah,
but I don't know, I'm just it's weird that those connections are there, so
yeah.
we'll see.
So we've also got Mel coming back in the series finale,
Hmm.
which she obviously was in the Giggle. So we've had a few classic Who companions show up in recent years as well. Like I say we've had just Ace, Tegan, and Mel, but we've technically had William Russell, who has
May he
sadly
rest
passed
in peace.
away. We've had Joe Grant in The Power of the Doctor as well. So, like, is there any classic Who companions that haven't showed up yet that you would love to see return?
Oh yeah, there's so many. If I could, I'm a fanboy. I'm a guy who'd go, oh, why can't we all just come back? We should have
Yeah,
had, bring back, Vicky and Peter and Susan, and you bring everyone back. But I realistic, like I'd always hoped Ace would come back, and we finally got that. So now I would probably say, and Mel, I've always been a fan of, even though people tended to hate Mel for the most part. Like now she's sort of had a bit of renewed popularity, but people
yeah,
always, were very critical of her and her screaming. But I've always liked her, so I'm glad to see she's come back. So next I would probably now that we've established this sort of like idea of we've had the companion support group and companions working for unit, we've really opened those doors. So I would like like I said, Romana is my favorite companion. So if I could find a way to bring her back, I would adore that.
yeah,
But obviously that's depending on what fate of her character they want to go with. It could be difficult. If nothing else, like as we assume she disappeared in a time war, but then now
mm,
that's all very muddy. So like they've brought Gallifrey back and then destroyed it again. So it's sort of unclear as to what happened to. So there's wriggle room. They could bring her back, I
yeah,
guess. But it's just if they really wanted to, I suppose they could. They tend to be, they pick and choose what sort of continuity they want to follow. So,
yeah.
yeah, I would love to see Romana come back if that were a possibility. But other than that, a more possible choice, I guess, maybe. Oh, like it'd be nice to see Nissa. I think Nissa would be cool
Mm.
to see again. Like she's out there somewhere. I'm trying to think of what companions would be alive on present day Earth that they could just have
That's what I
show
was
up.
thinking of the other day. I was like,
Like,
oh, I'd love to see like it'd be interesting to see Adric come back. But then I was like, oh,
I,
no, that's not gonna happen. And then I was like, oh, Perry would be cool. And I was like, oh, no, not that one either. And I was like, God,
Uh,
okay,
but then, Perry's also had like a complicated,
yeah, very
continuity. So
much,
Mel went off with Savalon Glitz, and they brought her
mm,
back. So like I said, when it comes down to it, they sort of pick and choose what they want
yeah,
to. Ace had the most complicated, post-show history of them all. She had a million
yeah,
different fates and different media, and so when it comes down to it, if they really want to, they could probably just bring him back and just have a line where they say, "Oh, this," So. They don't. It's not like they try to stick to expanded media continuity and whatnot. But yeah, in terms of I would have loved to see obviously Susan has always been a biggie for me. Like I was hoping she'd be in the 60th because not to be too dark, but like Caroline Ford. But I would love to see her come back into the show. So now that they've sort of had some possible hints that could happen, I'm crossing my fingers. But then Peter Purvis, who played Steven, like I would love to see
mm,
just for the sense of like legacy and like get some first Doctor companions to come back. I think it'd be
yeah,
cool to see. We don't have many left, so it'd be cool to see like characters like Steven and Susan. I love the second Doctor's companions, Jay and Zoe. So if they could have a way to bring them back, my heart
yeah,
would melt. But yeah, because it's but other than that, yeah, I think that's probably a fair smattering already. Like I said, I haven't really narrowed it down, I guess, because I'm just fanboying over pretty much
yeah,
every single companion who ever existed. But yeah, if Perry would be good too if they could figure out a way to bring her back. But and like Leela, like as far as we know, she was on Gallifrey during the Time
Yeah.
War. Like, but again, they could pick and choose what sort of continuity they want to follow.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I'd be happy with anyone, but if I'm gonna pick one, I'd say Susan. I know it's pretty cliched, but like,
No,
there's a reason.
I'm very much hoping, especially after hearing them, like the Doctor, discuss her quite heavily in the Devil's Court. I'm like, oh, please bring her back. I'm like,
That
I don't mind her regenerating, but I want Carol Ann Ford back first. Like,
Well, that's what I thought realistically, I think if she did come back, that'd probably be a different incarnation. But it'd be nice if we could at least see Carol Ann Ford for
yeah,
a regeneration scene or something. When my heart that endeared itself to my heart when he did talk about Susan. Like, I'm a
yeah,
sucker for that sort of thing. Like, I wish they had done that in the 60th, but I'll
yeah,
take what I can get. Um, and then I thought, please, surely that wasn't for nothing. Surely, like,
yeah. That's what I'm
I
thinking.
was being a grumpy cynic, like, oh, they're in 1963, but they're not even going to acknowledge that, what the
Yeah,
significance is. But then, like, he actually said it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm happy now.
yeah,
I'm not going to whine now. But
yeah. I was also thinking that he's mentioned it. I was like, that can't mean that. Surely that means something. Like,
yeah, I
but
thought surely. But
no.
then back in season 10, when Capaldi and the 12th Doctor had a picture of Susan on his
Mm,
desk, I
yeah,
was like, does that mean something? So,
yeah,
I'm not getting my hopes up, but yeah, I would like to see Susan come back in some way. Like, the fact that he's mentioned her now, and especially like it'd be nice because of how the Doctor's origin has been thrown into such uncertainty. I think it'd be nice to have like a nice comforting reminder of his past. Like, for us and for him, like he's been so uncertain and so sort of angsty about it all. Like, it'd be nice if like he gets to reunite with his granddaughter and
yeah,
like, oh, this is something I know is true. She's my
yeah.
granddaughter. That's a family I had. Even if it isn't where I originally came from, it would be nice.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing Russell T Davies has said is that he's hoping to build his own sort of like Marvel universe with
Mm.
Doctor Who now that Disney Plus has thrown in a lot of money. So like now that you're getting back into the show, what are you hoping to see? Like how big do you think Doctor Who could be as big as it used to be like in Russell's first era of the show?
Well, I don't like. It's hard to say. I feel like I don't like. It's certainly not at that level now. I feel like it's definitely
Yeah,
a different. Like it's you can't deny that the status of the show among fans and in like a wider audience is not the same as it was back in
yeah,
the first
definitely.
RTD era or even the early Moffat era. But I think if anyone can do it, he can, because when you look back at his first era, like, it was a bit of a golden age. You had two successful spin-offs. He was essentially doing sort of like a shared universe before it was cool,
Yeah,
because like when you think about the Stolen Earth Journey's End was kind of like an Avengers moment for
yeah, very much. Yeah,
universe, like it not on a scale as what we've seen since, but it was the type of thing that wasn't really done to that
yeah,
degree. And now we've seen a lot with like the MCU, the Arrowverse, various other things where crossovers and shared universes are big. So I certainly think if someone could do it, it would be him. I think
yeah,
if anyone else can create a roster of successful spin-off shows, it would be him. Um, it's one of those weird things where part of me thinks I don't want it to go too far down the, Disney route. I don't want it to be
yeah,
like, this sort of Star Wars or MCU Disney universes where you got a million different shows on. And but it would be nice to certainly have at least a couple of good spin-offs and a bit of a nice little, if we could get a bit of a nice, like Doctor Who's never been big on continuity, so it'd be nice if we could have like a nice little bit of continuity going, little, which the first RTD era did have. It had a pretty good sense of continuity. So yeah, it'd be nice to see something like that, as long as it's within reason. Like, we don't need to have like, I don't know, like the Book of River Song or something like that. I'm trying. You don't need to
yeah.
have like, a spin-off for every character. We don't, but to a degree, it would be nice to see something like that, and I think RTD would be the one to pull it off.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So before we wrap up the episode, we're going to go to the segment that I throw out at the end of each episode, which is "What if?" And that's when I pen the question to the guest of "What if you were the showrunner? Who would you cast as your doctor, your companion, and your master?"
Oh boy, because well, as we know, every Doctor Who fan is certain that they could run the show better.
Yeah,
If I was in charge, um, this is the type of thing I have thought about. Like, a few years ago, back when Capaldi was first announced as leaving, I came up with my whole like little idea for my 13th Doctor, my 14th Doctor. I had a whole like 5-year plan worked out. So in terms of doctors, my go-to I've always wanted to see as the Doctor is I'll try to pronounce his name properly. Ian Griffith. He's an Welsh actor.
Yes, I know who you're
He
talking about.
played
Yeah.
most people would know him as Mr. Fantastic from
Mm.
the original Fantastic Four or the 2000s Fantastic Four movies, but I fell in love with him from a short-lived TV show called Forever.
Yep.
And that's oh, you know it?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Good show.
so I'm surprised not many people know it, but after watching that, I thought I want to see him as the Doctor. So for a long time, he's been my go-to dream Doctor. But Rishi Ayoade has always been another one I'd like to see, and Matt Ryan, who played Constantine on the short-lived
Yeah.
Constantine TV show. But yeah, that'd be my top three contenders. In terms of companion, I've never had like a dream fan cast companion. I've had more of like ideas for types of companions. Like I've always wanted to see like the Doctor with like child companion, not like child like a 5-year-old, but maybe like 8 to 12-year-olds, like sort of like a sort of younger companion. But I've had like Ace was meant to be 16, but maybe a bit younger, like sort of kid companions. Like not, but it's a hard thing to balance because that could get very annoying or very difficult to write. But like
Yeah.
I think it's the type of thing that if done well, it could be an interesting change in dynamic. Because like to the Doctor, we're all kids, so honestly, it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 12. It's like that's an imperceptible difference to him.
Yeah.
So but in terms of actors, I've never really had a dream actor to play a companion. Um, so yeah, it's no one really comes to mind. It's like it's more for me. It's more different types of companions. I've wanted to see the Doctor travel with more alien companions.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
classic Who, we had more variety in where companions came from. Like I would really like to see a break from 21st century Earth girls. Like one thing I do admire about Chris Chibnall is he gave us sort of like a sort of mixed TARDIS team, which I do
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, I'd like us to, aliens, people from different eras, but yeah, in terms of actors playing them, I don't really have anyone in mind particularly. But I'm sure if they could give us some companions with different backgrounds, that'd be nice. In
Yeah.
terms of the master, I do have a few. My go-to fan cast master would be Tom Ellis, who played
Mhm.
Lucifer in the
Okay.
Lucifer TV show. Um, I've always been really in love with the idea of him playing the master. It might, it might be a bit of a cheat because, like, if you watch Lucifer, like, I could very easily see him playing essentially that same character as the master. But I've also always been keen on the idea of a past Doctor playing the master. Like, for a while, I had this idea of like I could imagine Sylvester McCoy playing the master, like an older Sylvester McCoy as the master.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so Ian Grufford Doctor, Tom Ellis Master, and not quite sure about Companion, just as long as it got a different sort of background and origin story.
Okay. I like those choices. I also like the idea of an alien companion as well. Like we haven't really had that since well classic Who.
Yeah,
So
I
I feel
think
like that's something we need in New Who. As much as I'm like I love Ruby and I've enjoyed most of the companions of New Who. I'll say most. I feel like we need something, like yeah, like you said, like an alien would be cool, or just like a companion from the 70s or something would be cool. Yeah.
yeah, it can take baby steps. They don't have to like, but like I always,
Mm.
like classic Who, they tried to do Chameleon was like a robot, shape-shifting robot, and
Yeah.
the prop didn't work, so he was only in 2 stories. But at least they tried to do cool
Yeah.
ideas like that. And even if our aliens that looked human, they still had a lot of companions that were aliens. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can like I said, it doesn't have to be an actor in a heavy prosthetic suit every episode. I get that there are like practical reasons why, you have limitations, but also they've got Disney money now. They could, do a CG character or like some light prosthetics or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
something a
Definitely.
little different.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Ash. It's been such a pleasure having you and discussing all sorts of eras of Doctor Who from the classic and the new. It's been great having some conversations with you. I know that you mentioned you run the Doctor Who Fan Club of Australia's social media, and you also got your own social media. So where can people find you online?
Oh, well, on Instagram, I am Dr.Ash42, all lowercase. And then on Facebook, it's just my name, Ashley Tuchin. It's just a regular old Facebook page. But yeah, Instagram, I don't post that I don't post very regularly, but I try to post, like, I do cosplay and stuff, so I try to, post some post stuff as often as I can. But yeah, if you'd like to, and I write too for a few different places, so you can come check out, follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and you check out some of that stuff too. Yeah, always happy to meet fellow fans and make acquaintances. So
Beautiful. Well, all of Ash's links will be in the description on YouTube and Spotify if you guys want to go and check it out. I'll also put the social media for the Doctor Who Fan Club of Australia, their Facebook page and their Instagram page, so you guys can go and check it out, especially if you're a Doctor Who fan in Australia as well. Like, it'd be great to connect with them and, meet some fellow fans. But like I said, Ash, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been such a great time having you and discussing Doctor Who.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, I was so flattered that you invited me on. So I hope I haven't rambled too much.
No, you've been such a great guest. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation, great discussion. It's always great. I realized I was thinking we had done something like this before, but I think just because we've through a documentary and other things, we've sort of talked a lot, but we've never really had like a face-to-face discussion. So
no, I don't think so. No. Yeah, it's been really, really good. So thanks for coming on the show. And if you guys listening have enjoyed it or enjoyed watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and follow for the next episode. And yeah, Ash, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot. Catch you later. This has been great. See ya, everyone.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Whovian Commonly YouTube channel. Cool.